Hello friends, I'm Jai Prakash Pathak and today we'll be learning how you can create your very own chat room using the Express library. So let's get started. First of all, what I have done already is created a folder named chat room in the desktop. We'll be storing all our files of our project in this folder. So um, you also create. If you want to follow along, you can also create that. Second thing is you need this thing called Nodejs, which is actually used to execute the JavaScript codes outside the browser, and you can download any one of these two versions. It is recommended for the most users, so you can download this as well. So and then after, what you have to do is you have to open that folder using your the editor which I'm using is this Visual Studio Code. So you could use that if you want to follow along, and then this go to this open folder, right? So then after so you can see this we are on the desktop and this is the folder which I have created. So simply select that and click OK. So the Visual Studio Code is opening right now. So now the Visual Studio Code is ready. So this from my so this chat room the now the first what you will be seeing after opening the folder is like this with no files. So first of all, what you need to do is uh, open your terminals. There is a terminal integrated with the Visual Studio Code, and you can open that by using Control plus backtick, the button before one most probably in your keyboard. So you can click on that button and open the terminal window. So you can see my terminal window has opened. So first of all, we'll be initializing a project. So for initializing a project, you can type npm init, right, and click OK. So this will initialize a project and create a package.json file in your root project folder, right? And then after, so you can see it's asking for a package name, so we can provide a package name. So it's saying that the default package name is chat room, which is the name of our folder. So I'm okay with it. The first version, that's okay. Description, this is chat room, that's okay. So index, that's okay. Test command, not right now. Keywords, we don't want any keywords. Author, so author is me, which is Jack, and I'm okay with the license, and simply click yes. Okay, so we are done with and as soon as I hit OK, you can see the package.json file has been created in our folder. So next thing is we need to install the Express, right? So we can create a server for the as a backend for our chat room. So for you to install Express, you can type npm install Express, right, and hit enter. This will install Express. Now along with Express, we need another dependency that is known as nodemon, or another we have to import another module called nodemon. So what is nodemon? Nodemon is actually required to, nodemon will be using nodemon to run our server. And if we will not be using nodemon, actually what will happen is we have to restart the server each time we make a change. So with this nodemon, this will restart the server on the fly, on the runtime, and we do not have to restart the server each time. So after this, we'll be installing nodemon. And remember, this is a development dependency or development module which you do not need to export when you are releasing this application. So we'll be adding that. So let's call it npm install, and as we are adding this for development, so we can say save this dev for development, and we can say nodemon. That's what we have to install, right? So I'll be explaining you how you can use this nodemon in a second after this gets installed. Now along with this, we need one more dependency, that is SQLite, and we need this to store the data of the user. By this we can store the data we have entered by the user in a database and retrieve it whenever we need. So let's wait for it to complete. So yeah, you can see that we have added the node pretty successfully. Now what I'll be doing is I'll be installing the Sqlite. So npm install Sqlite. So, okay, so hit enter and let's wait for this to be installed. I hope so. It will be installed. It will be installed pretty quickly. So we can see this that I think so. Sqlite installed. Yes, so you can see now that our Sqlite package has been installed. Now let's close this terminal and go to this package.json file because we have to do some settings inside it. First of all, let's delete this script which has been given and write a script called start. And then we can specify node1 that we do not want to run by default node, we want to run by node1. So actually this should be double quotes. So node1 and index.js file. Okay, and save this. And now we have not created this index.js file, so let's create it. Index.js file. Okay, so we have to create it. Now we'll be coding our server, so we can code it by simply saying cons. We can first of all we need to import our package, so we can import it by saying let express equals to require express and then we need to initialize this. Actually this whole express is a function. That's pretty good. Now let's specify the port. So the port which we want is either you use the port which has been specified by the system or use the port 3000. So if you want to say that, you can say that by process.port, this is the port by the system, or use port 3000. And then after this, what we want to do, what does server do? Server actually listens for any request coming from the client side, right? So that's exactly the same what we'll be doing. Listen, right? So now we can listen to any request on port and have a callback. So what is callback? Callback is actually when this is successfully the server has started, you can execute a function, and that is called callback. So as this is a single line, so we can write directly like this. And I think you know what is this arrow function called. If you don't know, wait a second, I'll be explaining that. What is that? So let's log let's say server started successfully, right, on port, and the port on which it is started, port, whatever it is, either the system port or port 3000, right? So if this is correct, if this works, and this should write server started on port, whatever port we have specified. So let's open our command again by clicking command and backtick, control and backtick, right? So then after, let's clear the console. So okay, and then we can write npm and start. Why start? As we have mentioned in our package.json, so that's why start. Yes, so you can see that it says the server starts successfully on port 3000. Yes, we have started our server on port 3000. If you want to access it, let me go and take you to the browser and say localhost 3000. So if you go there and click enter, you will see it prints an error, say cannot get. It prints this because actually we are not sending anything to the client. We have just started our server, right? So let's first initially, just for showing you, let's add something to show on this browser. So we can say that app dot get. So because this is a get request, so we can say on the initial location, and now this is again an arrow function with a request and a response. And now you can see this is, and in the response we want to send, what do we want to send? We want to send, let's say, server running. Okay, so okay, so let's say this, and now you can see that this has successfully restarted our server for us. You can see we do not have to turn off the server and then again turn it on. So now you can go there and refresh this page, and you can see this server running. So this is how you can serve anything to the client. And now we don't want to serve this text, we want to serve an .html file. So how we can serve static HTML files with this server? Actually, that's pretty easy. See, so first let's create a folder in which our all the front end or the things which will be shown to the user will be there. So let's say public will be the folder in which everything will be there, and let's create a file called index.html over there. So we have created a file called index.html over there. Next, let's write the basic HTML thing, and let's say my chat, right? And we can just for now say index. Okay, what I'm typing, I don't know. Index file loading, right? So okay, loading, not loaded successfully, right? So we can say this, and now what we can do is we can serve this file, this static file from a server. So how we can do is, actually for using this you have to use a middleware provided by the Express library itself, that is at app.use, and you can use a middleware by using this use function. So you can say express dot static, you can say static, then you have to specify the folder name in which your static files are. So that is public is the static file, and by just saving this and going to the and refreshing this, you can see index file loaded successfully. Now we are really serving the static index files which was in the public folder. Next, what we need to do is we need to create our front end, right? So let's create a front end pretty quickly. So we want an h1 tag in which we want our chat, right? And we'll be having two fields, one is name and another is message. So that will be inside the, let's say, paragraph tag, name, put type text, and let's specify an ID also, call it name. And now let's say we want the message, same as input type text, and then we want the ID to be message, so let's call it MSG ID. So okay, what I have, so let's close the terminal for right now. Okay, and let's create a button also over here, so let's call it button, and let's even let's let it be a button, and then we can say submit. So first, as we have done this, we can go and refresh this one, and you can see this, our simple chat room layout has been started. So you can specify a name, a message, and submit, and that should be added. That's what our plan is. So next thing what we'll be doing is we'll be writing the front-end code in which we'll be requesting data from a server, and then we'll be writing some backend code where we'll be accepting data from a front end. So by front end I mean the thing by the user, right? And by the backend I mean the server, right? So now let's create a div over here for now, and give an ID. Now this will actually contain the chats, so all the chats which the user will be doing, right? So the next thing what I'll be doing is linking an JavaScript file with this so that we can write our front-end codes. So let's call it script.js, which is a JavaScript file, and let's link this JavaScript file by simply saying script source dot slash, not this one, dot slash script.js. So once we do that, we have this attached to the index file. Now let's write a function called submit message. Now this is a function which will be responsible for submitting the message, and let's write another function called get all message, msg, let's call it, right? So these two functions will be responsible, one for submitting the message to our server and one for getting back the server. So let's first now take the name and message from our user. So we can say let name is equals to document dot get element by id. The id which we want is name dot value, right? So and then next what we want is that email be equals to, not email, sorry, we have message, so that message be equals to document dot get element by id is g, that's small, and then dot value. And now let's do some validation. So if the name is not equals to this thing called, the name is not equals to this empty, and the message is not equals to empty, then only do this, else window dot alert please all the details, right? So this will give a message if the user has not filled any of the details. Now the next thing, let's now do what, this submit message. So let's call it get message, and let's now create a separate function called submit message. Okay, so now this will make our code a bit cleaner. So now we have a name and a message, so let's create a data. So how you can create a data, so let user let's call it message data equals to name is this name which we have got from the user, and message is the message which we got from the user. And let's now pass this to, now this needs the message data as an input. Now let's pass this to this function, right? So submit message and message data. So now we have successfully pass this data, whatever after validation which we got from the user, to this thing called submit message. Now this submit message will actually send our data, this data which we have received from user, to the server. So let's see how we can do this. First of all, what we need to do is we have to say, actually the server will give a response, and we'll be writing the server code after this. but will give a response, and to receive that we'll be having this function called receive, and now equals to receive equals to fetch. Now this fetch function is actually a very useful function. You can actually fetch data from an endpoint, an API. You can send data to an API. So this is quite useful function. So if you want to learn more, you can search in Google and you'll get a lot of content about this fetch function, right? So we want to send this data on the address, on an address, let's say new message, MSG. That's the new address which we want, which we have. Now this will now, as a second argument, will accept an object which will be all the information about the data which we are sending. So the data which we are sending is by the method called post. Okay, second thing is uh, now this wants a body in which we will be sending our data. So the data should be in text format, it should be in plain format, so we have to convert this to from JSON to text, right? So we can do that by simply using JSON dot stringify the message data which we are receiving, and then we need to say which type of data we are sending. So for that we need to specify headers, and that will be an object, and that will be content type. And the content type which we are sending is application slash JSON, right? So this is actually we are sending JSON data by this. Now this is sending as a stream of data, so it cannot happen just within a, just executing. This needs time. So because this needs time, you have to write await there, and this, and as you have written await there, this function becomes an async function, right? So you have to specify that. That's important. Now once you have that, you have the response from the from the database, that was successful or failure or whatever. So you can, and actually that response is a stream of data, that's not a data. So to convert this into the data, as we will be sending the response in JSON format, so we have to receive it, right? So we can say let response data is equals to, now we have to convert that from that text format to the JSON format, and we can do it now. That will also need an await, and then we can say res dot JSON, yes, and like this. And now we can console log this data. So this is our all the function to send the data to our server. Now let's try to receive this data on our server. So let's first test this one, that is this working till now. So let's refresh this. So let's write some without, okay, I think this script dot slash script.js. Okay, so we forgot, we actually forgot to hit this get message function. So just copy this function from here and say that whenever this button is clicked, execute this function, right? And now if you see that, if you refresh this one, so now if you don't apply any of these and click submit, you'll get an alert, please fill all the details, right? So we'll be now seeing how the data is fetched. So first let's go to the server, this server side, and we want to say that we want to receive the data on by a post request on slash what is that address we are sending it on. We are sending it on new message, so let's receive this on new message, right? And now this will give a request and response object and an arrow function. Now arrow function is like normal function. If you, this is an asynchronous function, you have to write this function over there and remove that arrow from there. So now in modern JavaScript you don't need that. You can do it like this with with this type of function, right? So an arrow function. So Now we know that we are hitting this new message address, right? So now we can retrieve all the data. Now here is also a problem. Actually, the data is in a format of stream and it needs to be converted. It needs to be passed to JSON format. And for doing that, actually we have another middleware called express.json, right? So this middleware will help you to automatically pass the data coming from the client side, right? So we can say let data, let's say message data is equals to message data is equals to uh, the request dot body, actually the request which we have sent, and let's console log it. And let's see that. So fingers crossed that this works. So, and let's send a response also, response dot, and we are sending a JSON response, and let's say uh, okay, let's say status. Let's hard code this right now. So let's say uh, data received successfully, right? So let's say this right now. So let's see that could we do this or not. So refresh this right now. Refreshed. Okay, wrong window. Okay, so let's open our console in which our server was running. So this should show that over there. So let's say my name is Chair, and I'll say hi to the world. Submit. Let's say we have got anything on the console. So we have an object which says data received successfully. Now we are getting this thing from the server, and let's see what do we have. Fingers crossed that we have received the data properly. You can see this, we have received the data from our front end, from our client side to our backend, that is server, pretty successfully. So this was part one, and in part two I'll be explaining how you can store this data in an Sqlite database and how you can show this data. So thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope so you'll have a great day. Thank you.